Hi there, Natalie with you today with a new process video for Pink Fresh Studio. And today we're going to use the beautiful Simply the Best collection and a few dies from the shop to document something that's dear and close to my heart, coffee. So I pulled a few pictures and I pulled a few dies from the shop. I'm using the fancy circle die set, and I'm also going to use the mini slimline frame die set to create, or actually to cut my pictures into circles. Whenever I think of coffee, I think of a cup, I think of round, I think of circles. So I went ahead and actually used it to cut my pictures, and I also cut some white cardstock, some bases, because I want to create a frame around them. Now that I have them ready, it's all going to be about building layers of mixed media behind it. And it's not going to be a very complicated layout. I just want to create the kind of messy look on my page. So I'm going to set my idea with the circles. I want them kind of cascading down the page, having the color at the top and black and white at the bottom. And I made my picture black and white because the cup that I'm holding is actually like bright pink, and it just clashed a little bit on this page. So I'm going to set my pictures in place, and they're not going to stay there, but give me an idea of where they're going to sit. And I'm going to use a pencil to lightly draw around the circumference of each of the pictures. That's just going to help me with the setting and knowing when to add my mixed media. So now that I have that ready, I'm going to set my pictures aside and I'm going to start working on adding mixed media. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind is that I'm using actually heavy cardstock. This is Vicky Boutin 140-pound foundation paper. That means that it's really heavy cardstock and it has a coating on top of it. So it's going to help me with like moving the mediums around. If you don't have this paper, then watercolor paper will work. Or if you only have access to regular cardstock, then I'll suggest that you add a coating of gesso to it so that you're able to play with the water and without having your paper buckle at the end. So I'm starting by bringing some of the teal tones from the collection. For that, I am using Sea Breeze and Sea Breeze and Aquamarine. And all I did is just stamp the colors on a piece of acetate. I'm gonna add some water to dilute the ink from the ink pad. I'm going to kind of splatter that on my page. I'm going to add mostly the splatters around where I have the circles. And then because I have my papers prepped, I'm actually going to go with my plastic and kind of rock it on top of the puddles of watercolor. And that's just going to help to spread the watercolor. So like I said, consider prepping your page if you only have cardstock. Add a little bit of gesso will help you with this. Once I have my teal, I'm going to bring some of the greens. For that, I'm using Emerald City. Again, I'm stamping the ink pad on the acetate, diluting the ink with some water, and then just adding it to my paper and just rocking the acetate. And I'm finished with a little bit of rocky slope ink. And I'm doing the same thing. And you're going to see my paper's a little bit like higher. And I apologize, I have a really bad cold when I'm doing this voiceover. So, but you're gonna see, I'm gonna bring it down so you see it. I have most of my mixed media is surrounding those circles that I created. So that's my first layer. I'm gonna set it aside to dry, and I went and pulled the Slimline Heart Builder stencil. I'm gonna use stencil number 2 or the medium heart. And the reason that I'm using this stencil is because it's a repetitive image, which means that I'm able to move it without destroying the I'm not going to say destroy it, but I can have a repetitive image that is going to look formal in this setting. So that means that I'm not disturbing the design of it. That's the best way to put it. And I'm using a rocky slope ink for this. I have one of my stencil brushes, and the way I'm going to go with it is I'm going to apply pressure, like heavier pressure, wherever I'm closer to those circles that I drew. And then I'm going to move my stencil. I do not want to create a straight line. I want to create kind of a zigzag throughout the circles. One thing, the circle thing is, like I said, I am adding a lot of pressure, kind of a heavier hand whenever I'm closer to the circles, but as I move away from the circles, I just kind of lift up my hand a little bit so the pressure is less, and I create a fading effect of the heart on my page. So I'm just going to continue. You're going to see how I move my stencil. I'm trying to get the hearts that are in the center of the stencil. I don't want those half hearts, and I'm just going heavy in some areas and then just making it soft as I move away from that. So it gives you that kind of effect. And if you see my page, I have a zigzag. Now I want to bring those coffee rings that are left behind on my table whenever I'm drinking cups of coffee. So for that, I'm using just a paper cup, and I am using the black detail ink. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm just going to literally put my cup on top of the ink, and then I'm going to put it on my paper, kind of wiggle it a bit, and then that creates those rings on my page. And I'm going to put them right next to where I'm going to sit my pictures. Now, whenever you sit your cup, especially if it's dripping, and that happens a lot in my house, there's usually like little splatters left next to the coffee ring. So I'm going to do that on my page. For that, I'm using a little bit of black ink, and I'm diluting it with some water, and I'm just going to use a round brush to create the splatters right on top of the rings. And I'm just going to make sure, I'm not going to overdo it, but I'm going to make sure that I dip my brush and make some of those splatters a little bit bigger so that they actually show up on the background. And that's pretty much all the mixed media you're going to see on my page. A lot of the mixed media it's not that it's going to be hidden, it just happens to be whenever I put my pictures on top of it, it's going to be hidden, but I know it's there. It's going to create the halo, it's going to be that interest to the background. So I'm going to set it aside to dry, and I'm going to work on the embellishments and the paper part of this. So I'm going to continue with the circular motif on this page. And there's a lot of design elements in the papers that have the circular look. So I'm going to use the same dies. One is the Fancy Circles die set, and the other one is the Essentials mini slimline frames die set. I'm going to use the circles in them to cut some circles out of the papers in the collection. So you're going to see that I'm just making sure that they fit, and then I'm just going to go ahead and trim them, and I'm going to take it off camera and cut some of them, and I'm also going to cut some of the pattern paper. Now, I'm not going to overdo it with the pattern paper. I already have a lot going on the background, but I do want something that has that kind of, there's a little bit of an orange kind of brownish tone in here. I want to have some of that, especially in between my circles. So you're going to see, I'm just pulling all the pieces. I want to cut some icons out of the papers. I want to cut those sayings. There's papers that are full of circles, so it was just a matter of picking some sayings that will make sense on my layout. So you're gonna see, I'm actually gonna show you how I'm cutting a few of them. And then there's a paper it's called Iconic, and the B side is full of little icons. I'm actually gonna use a 1-inch punch to actually cut some of these icons. I saw them in the chipboard stickers, but they don't all repeat, so I'm just gonna use some of them, and some of them is gonna be a part of it, and that's okay because I'm gonna stash it underneath the photo. So now that I have all my pieces ready, my apologies on that, I'm gonna go ahead and just set it up on my page. So you're gonna see that I'm gonna first of all set up my pictures, and then I'm gonna bring those little rounds of pattern paper. I want to make sure that there's a saying and an icon right next to one of my pictures. I want to make sure that my pictures sit next to those rings, and then I'm literally just going to cascade my circles in a zigzag throughout the page. Once I have that ready, it's all about adding dimension. I want to make sure that some pieces of this pop, and some, think of it as layers. So I want that cup of coffee to be really stand out. So I'm going to add thicker, I think you call it thicker or wider, foam adhesive behind it to make sure that it pops. I want that cheers, a little round piece, to also stand out. So I'm adding a heavier double foam adhesive behind it so that it pops from the page. And then I'm just gonna make sure that I continue doing that to stick everything in place, giving it some dimension and some interest, especially because I have all that mixed media on the background. I want to create a soft separation between the paper and the mixed media so everything stands out and it has some room to breathe. Once that's all set up, you're gonna see that I'm gonna take my time with this. I'm gonna go actually into the embellishments for this collection and see what else I can bring into this. I already have quite a bit of circles going on. I am gonna bring some chipboard pieces because they have that, coffee theme or motifs in it. But I'm also gonna bring some phrase stickers, and I went for lines so that it it's not that the words not contradict, but it's a different shape. But I want to make sure that they all look the same way, like horizontal little lines, so that there's a repetition also on the layout. You don't see the top part because I'm going to show you how I created my title. For my title, I went into the puffy sticker and it said today's stories, and I thought it was great because that's just my morning coffees. So I thought it was a great title, and I'm going to actually use the I'm gonna add the word coffee. I'm gonna use those beautiful puffy alphas from the collection to spell it at the bottom, and that's what I went with horizontal phrase stickers, so that it mimic the same direction and look of my title. And I want them to intersect all those circles just to bring the interest onto that area. And then I actually went into the ephemera, and it says that this gives me life, and I thought it was perfect for me. Coffee is like a must every day, so a lot of coffee. So once I have that in place, I am just going to add a few enamel dots. I'm going to stay within the teal and the light blue and the green and the mustardy yellow around my layout, and that's about it. The lines of journal, I'm going to add them after, probably at the back, because there's a lot to be said about coffee. And that's about it. I really enjoy how this turned out. It took me no time to put together, by the way. What took the longest was for the mixed media to dry. And like I said, if you don't have the heavy cardstock, then consider adding gesso to your page so you don't have the buckling on your page. And I hope you like it. As always, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to contact me. Remember that I'm adding all the materials that I use to the comment section, so you can always check them out. As always, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. There's always beautiful content being added. Thank you so much for joining me today. Take care, guys.